Everything you've been taught about human history is incomplete. Beneath your feet, hidden in the depths of the earth, ancient texts describe a civilization that was deliberately erased from our records, a parallel world called Agartha, and the shocking truth about why governments have been keeping it secret for centuries. In the next 20 minutes, you're going to discover the evidence that changes everything. Real archaeological findings, ancient manuscripts from multiple civilizations, and the incredible story of one man who risked everything to uncover what was hidden. This isn't speculation. This is the history they didn't want you to know. Marcus Chin was a ghost. Not literally, of course, but in every way that mattered, he had become invisible. 20 years of dedicated research. 2 published books that nobody read. Dozens of peer-reviewed papers gathering dust in academic journals that only other forgotten scholars bothered to open. He was 53 years old, teaching introductory archaeology to students who spent more time scrolling through their phones than listening to him speak. His office was a tomb of broken dreams. Stacks of research papers covered every surface, some yellowing at the edges, some still in their original envelopes from conferences he'd attended years ago. Hoping to network, hoping to be heard. Books about ancient civilizations lined the shelves, volumes he'd spent years studying, analyzing, cross-referencing until his eyes burned and his back ached from hunching over dusty pages. His colleagues had stopped inviting him to department meetings. The university administration had quietly removed him from the tenure track 5 years ago. Nobody said it directly, but the message was clear. Marcus Chin was a liability. A relic, a man whose best days were behind him. The walls of his office were a faded beige that had gone out of style sometime in the early 2000s. A single window looked out onto the parking lot. His desk was covered with coffee rings from cups he'd forgotten to throw away. There was a framed photo of his daughter on her high school graduation day. She was smiling, radiant, full of possibility. He couldn't bear to look at it most days. He sat alone in his apartment most nights, drinking cheap wine and staring at walls that hadn't been painted since 2008. The carpet was threadbare in places. The kitchen appliances were older than some of his students. His ex-wife had taken the good furniture when she left, the leather couch they'd picked out together, the mahogany dining table, the bed frame that had cost more than he made in a month. What remained was functional, cheap, depressing. A studio apartment's worth of furniture spread across a 2-bedroom house that echoed with emptiness. His ex-wife had taken more than furniture, though. She'd taken his confidence, his sense of purpose, his belief that his life meant something. She'd left him a letter. He still remembered reading it, his hands shaking, tears blurring the words, explaining that she couldn't watch him waste away anymore, that his obsession with dead civilizations and forgotten mysteries was destroying them both, that she needed a partner who was present, who was successful, who wasn't constantly chasing ghosts. She'd found that partner, a venture capitalist named Derek, who drove a Tesla and took her to Cabo every winter. His daughter called once a month out of obligation, her voice tight with the kind of pity that cuts deeper than any insult. She was a lawyer now, successful, everything he'd failed to become. She'd inherited her mother's practicality, her father's disappointment. When she called, the conversations were always the same. How are you? Fine. Work going okay? Yeah, fine. Well, I should go, but I'll call you next month. Okay, love you too, Dad, love you too, Dad. The words had stopped meaning anything years ago. But Marcus didn't care anymore. Or so he told himself. He'd made peace with irrelevance. He'd accepted that his life would be small, quiet, unmemorable. He'd resigned himself to being the kind of person that obituaries would describe as a dedicated educator, and a passionate researcher. The polite euphemisms for nobody important. He would retire in a few years with a modest pension. He would spend his final decades in quiet obscurity, and when he died, the university would issue a brief statement and move on. His research would be forgotten. His theories would be dismissed. His life would have meant nothing. And then came the phone call that would destroy that fragile peace forever. It was a Tuesday evening in March, the kind of evening that feels like it could be any evening. Unremarkable. Ordinary. The kind of night that thousands of people were living through simultaneously, unaware that their lives were about to change. Marcus was grading papers in his apartment, the television on in the background for company. He wasn't really watching it. He was mechanically reading the same recycled essays about the Mesopotamian dynasty that he'd been reading for 15 years. The essays were terrible. The students hadn't bothered to do the research. They just regurgitated information from Wikipedia and hoped he wouldn't notice. He was too tired to care. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. In fact, he almost let it go to voicemail. He was about to, his finger hovering over the decline button, when something made him pause. Some instinct. Some whisper of fate. He answered. Dr. Chin, a woman's voice. Nervous. Careful. The kind of voice that belonged to someone who wasn't used to taking risks. This is Eleanor Voss. I'm the head librarian at the university. I need to see you. Tonight, it's important. Eleanor Voss. Marcus knew her by reputation. Quiet. Meticulous. The kind of person who actually read the acknowledgments in books. The kind of person who noticed things. They'd spoken maybe twice in 5 years. Brief, polite exchanges in the hallway about book donations and research materials. She'd always seemed kind, but distant. Professional. The type of librarian who was more interested in cataloging information than in the people who used it. Is everything all right? Marcus asked, already standing up, already sensing that something significant was happening. Not here, she said, and he could hear the fear in her voice now, barely concealed. Not on the phone. Can you come to the library after hours? Around 9? Please, Dr. Chin. It's very important. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't. Something in her voice made him say yes without hesitation. Something in that desperate, careful tone told him that this wasn't a routine request. This was something that mattered. I'll be there, he said. The university library was a cathedral of silence at night. The kind of silence that feels almost sacred, as if the building itself is holding its breath. Marcus arrived at 8:55 p.m., parking in the empty lot and walking toward the rear entrance. The campus was deserted. The academic buildings loomed like sleeping giants against the dark sky. His footsteps echoed on the concrete. Eleanor met him at the back entrance, her small frame silhouetted against the glass door. She was a small woman, maybe 70, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a cardigan despite the mild evening, the kind of cardigan that suggested she was always cold, always slightly anxious. As he approached, he could see that she was trembling. Not from cold, but from fear. She looked terrified. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, leading him through the darkened corridors. The library at night was a different place, less welcoming, more labyrinthine. The familiar shelves seemed to stretch into infinity. Their footsteps were the only sound. I've been waiting for the right person, someone brilliant enough to understand, someone desperate enough to care, someone with nothing left to lose. Eleanor, what is this about? Marcus asked, following her deeper into the building. She didn't answer. Instead, she led him down a narrow staircase he'd never noticed before, a passage that descended beneath the main library building, hidden behind a door marked authorized personnel only. The air grew colder as they descended, older. like they were moving backward through time with each step. The walls were concrete, painted institutional gray. There were no windows, no natural light, just the artificial glow of the overhead lights, which seemed to grow dimmer the further down they went. At the bottom was a door, a real door, made of heavy oak, with ornate brass hinges and a lock that looked like it hadn't been opened in decades. It was the kind of door you'd expect to find in a Victorian mansion, not in the basement of a modern university library. Eleanor produced a key from her cardigan pocket, an old-fashioned skeleton key, the kind that belonged in a museum, and turned it in the lock with a soft, decisive click. The door swung open. Inside was a room that shouldn't exist. Not here. Not in the 21st century. The room was climate-controlled. Marcus could feel the subtle hum of the HVAC system, the careful regulation of temperature and humidity. The walls were lined with glass cases, custom-built, lit from within by soft LED lights. And inside those cases were manuscripts. Hundreds of them. Ancient texts in languages Marcus recognized: Sanskrit, Tibetan, ancient Greek, Latin, and languages he'd never seen before. The air itself seemed to hum with age and significance, with the weight of centuries of hidden knowledge. Marcus stepped inside slowly, as if he were entering a sacred space. Because he was. What is this? Marcus breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. The collection that was supposed to be destroyed, Eleanor said quietly, closing the door behind them. In 1952, the university received a donation of rare manuscripts from a collector named Dr. Heinrich Richter, a German archaeologist who'd spent his entire life researching something he called the hidden world. He was obsessed with it. He traveled to remote regions of the world, Tibet, Peru, the Amazon, Mongolia, collecting texts, interviewing indigenous peoples, documenting evidence of something that most scholars dismissed as mythology. Eleanor walked slowly along the glass cases, running her fingers gently along the edges, careful not to touch the precious contents. When the university board discovered what he'd left us, she continued, they panicked. They were afraid of the implications, afraid of what it would mean for the university's reputation if word got out that we were housing such controversial materials. They ordered everything destroyed, burned, erased from the records. They wanted it gone, completely, utterly, as if it had never existed. But you didn't destroy them, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. I was young, Eleanor said, and her voice trembled with emotion. I was just starting as a librarian. I was 24 years old, idealistic, full of the belief that knowledge was sacred. I couldn't bear to burn knowledge, any knowledge. It felt like burning part of human history. So I hid them. Down here, I created a secret room. I told no one. For 70 years, I've been their guardian. 70 years of solitude. 70 years of keeping this secret. She turned to face Marcus, and her eyes were wet with tears. And I'm dying, Dr. Chen. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. Cancer. It's already in my lymph nodes. There's nothing they can do. I can't let this knowledge disappear with me. I can't let it be erased. I need someone who understands, someone who will care enough to do something with it, someone who will risk everything to reveal the truth. Eleanor walked to one of the glass cases and carefully removed a manuscript bound in what looked like aged leather, soft, supple, treated with care over centuries. The pages were yellowed, fragile, covered in meticulous handwriting. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. You could see the love that had gone into creating this object. This is from the 14th century, Eleanor said, opening it carefully, her aged hands steady despite her emotional state. A Tibetan text. It was discovered in a monastery in the Himalayas by Dr. Richter himself. It describes an underground civilization, a parallel world beneath the Earth's crust. They call it Agartha. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. A tremor, a recognition of something he couldn't quite name. It was as if some part of him, some deep, ancient part, had been waiting for this moment his entire life. "Read," Eleanor said, pointing to a passage. "Read what it says." Marcus leaned in, his heart pounding. The text was in Tibetan, but he could make out enough from his years of study, from his decades spent learning dead languages and forgotten scripts. The kingdom beneath the mountains is not myth. It is sanctuary. When the great separation came, when the surface world fell into darkness and chaos, the enlightened ones descended into the crystal cities. There they built a civilization of light and wisdom. There they waited in silence. And there they watched still, waiting for the day when the surface world would be ready to remember, waiting for the day when the veil would be lifted. Marcus felt his breath catch. The implications were staggering. But Eleanor wasn't finished. "There's more," Eleanor said, moving to another case. "Much more. So much more." Over the next 3 hours, Eleanor showed Marcus the collection. A Sumerian clay tablet describing the people who came from below the great earth, with cuneiform script so ancient it predated most known civilizations. A medieval manuscript from an unknown monk, the pages signed only with the initials BM, detailing the hidden kingdom beneath the Himalayas with stunning geographical accuracy. Ancient Hindu texts describing Shambhala, the legendary underground city of enlightenment, with detailed descriptions of its architecture and inhabitants. A 16th century Portuguese explorer's journal describing strange encounters in the Brazilian rainforest with beings of impossible grace and knowledge, taller than men, with eyes that seemed to contain entire universes. There were Egyptian papyri that spoke of the people from the inner sanctum. There were Chinese texts from the Tang dynasty describing the kingdom of light beneath the Kunlun mountains. There were Incan quepus, the knotted recording devices that Eleanor had translated by a specialist, revealing descriptions of the sky people who came from below. There were Aboriginal Australian songlines, transcribed and annotated, that spoke of the dreaming people who lived in the world below. Every text described the same thing, the same civilization, the same impossible truth, and they all corroborated each other. The details were consistent across cultures, across centuries, across continents. The descriptions of the cities, crystalline structures glowing from within, built with technology that seemed beyond human capability. The descriptions of the people, taller than surface humans, with elongated features, moving with preternatural grace. The descriptions of the purpose, a civilization dedicated to preserving knowledge, to maintaining spiritual and technological advancement, to watching the surface world and waiting for the moment of reunion. Marcus sat down heavily on a wooden bench, his mind reeling. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. And yet, the evidence was undeniable. The consistency across cultures, across centuries, across continents, multiple ancient civilizations, completely isolated from each other, all describing the same underground world in remarkably similar terms. The probability of that being coincidence was infinitesimal. It was impossible for this to be false, which meant it had to be true. Eleanor sat beside him, her aged hand trembling slightly. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. She simply let him process, let him absorb the magnitude of what he was looking at. "Why are you showing me this?" Marcus asked quietly, his voice hoarse. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. "Because you're the only one who will understand what it means. Because you've spent your entire career being laughed at for asking the right questions. Because you have nothing left to lose. Because you're brilliant enough to see the pattern and desperate enough to pursue it even when everyone tells you you're crazy. She was right. He had nothing left to lose. His career was already destroyed. His personal life was already in ruins. His reputation was already shot. What could they do to him that hadn't already been done? "I want you to have everything," Eleanor continued, her voice growing stronger now, more certain. "The manuscripts, the research, the photographs, the geological surveys, the interviews Dr. Richter conducted, all of it. I want you to find the truth, Dr. Chen. I want you to prove that Agartha is real. I want you to show the world what was erased. I want you to do what I was too afraid to do." Marcus looked at the ancient texts surrounding him, centuries of knowledge, hidden away in darkness, waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough to bring them into the light. And for the first time in 20 years, he felt something he thought had died long ago. Hope. But it was a dangerous hope, a hope that would set forces in motion he couldn't control. A hope that would make him a target for people who had spent decades keeping this secret. A hope that would transform his life in ways he couldn't yet imagine. He didn't know it yet, but the moment he touched those manuscripts, his old life ended. The moment he agreed to Eleanor's request, he crossed a threshold from which there was no return, and something far more terrifying and far more extraordinary was about to begin. The comfortable obscurity he'd resigned himself to was about to be shattered. The quiet, unremarkable life he'd accepted was about to become anything but quiet, and the forces that had kept Agartha hidden for centuries were about to notice that someone was asking the right questions. But discovering the truth was only the first mistake. The real danger was about to find him. He drove home from the library at midnight, Eleanor's words echoing in his mind, the weight of the manuscripts pressing against his consciousness like a physical force. He sat in his apartment with the lights off, staring at nothing, his mind racing through the implications of what he'd seen. At 3 a.m., he got up and made coffee. At 4 a.m., he started taking notes. By 6 a.m., he'd filled 3 notebooks with observations, connections, questions that demanded answers. He called in sick to work. He told the department secretary that he had the flu. It was a lie, but a necessary one. He couldn't face his students today. He couldn't pretend to care about Mesopotamian trade routes and pottery shards when his mind was consumed with something far larger, far more significant, something that rewrote the entire history of human civilization. Eleanor had given him copies of the most important manuscripts, high-resolution scans, digitized and organized into folders on an encrypted USB drive. She'd also given him Dr. Richter's personal research notes, hundreds of pages of observations, theories, and documented evidence collected over a lifetime of investigation. The notes were meticulous. The man had been brilliant, obsessive, driven by a conviction that bordered on religious fervor. Marcus read through the night. He read about Richter's expeditions to Tibet, where he'd interviewed monks who spoke of underground cities connected by vast tunnel systems. He read about Richter's journey to Peru, where indigenous elders had shown him ancient maps that depicted underground caverns with impossible accuracy, maps that predated modern cartography by centuries. He read about Richter's time in the Amazon, where he documented indigenous stories of the people who came from the earth, beings who possessed advanced knowledge and who had taught surface humans the secrets of agriculture and astronomy before withdrawing back into the underground. But it wasn't just anecdotal evidence. Richter had been a scientist as well as an explorer. He'd collected geological data. He documented electromagnetic anomalies in specific locations around the world, places where compasses behaved erratically, where seismic readings showed impossible hollow spaces beneath the Earth's crust, where satellite imagery revealed geometric patterns that couldn't be explained by natural geological processes. There was a location in the Himalayas, coordinates marked precisely in Richter's notes, where seismic surveys had detected what appeared to be a massive hollow chamber at a depth of approximately 30 kilometers. The chamber was enormous, the size of a small country, and it showed signs of artificial construction. There was another location in the Gobi Desert where ground-penetrating radar had revealed a vast network of tunnels, perfectly geometric, clearly engineered. The tunnels descended in a spiral pattern, spiraling downward into the earth in a way that suggested they were designed to reach something far below the surface. And there were others. A site in the Brazilian rainforest, a location beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, a place in the Carpathian Mountains in Romania, where local legends spoke of the city of light beneath the stone. All of it documented, all of it investigated, all of it pointing toward the same impossible conclusion. The earth was not hollow, but it was inhabited. And that habitation was not on the surface. Marcus became obsessed. He stopped eating regular meals. He'd survive on coffee and whatever was in his refrigerator, usually just condiments and expired yogurt. He stopped showering. He stopped changing his clothes. He spent 16, 18, sometimes 20 hours a day reading, analyzing, cross-referencing, building connections between the various texts and the scientific data. His apartment became a chaos of papers and notebooks. He covered his walls with maps, geological surveys, satellite imagery, ancient maps from various cultures, all marked with locations that Richter had identified as significant. He created a timeline tracking references to Agartha across centuries and cultures, looking for patterns, for corroboration, for proof. And the more he researched, the more undeniable it became. The evidence was overwhelming, not in any single document or study, but in the aggregate. The consistency, the corroboration, the way that disparate pieces of information from completely unrelated sources fit together like a puzzle that had been waiting centuries to be solved. On the fourth day of his obsession, Marcus made a connection that changed everything. He was reading through Richter's notes on ancient Hindu texts when he came across a reference to something called the Akashic Records, a concept from Hindu and Buddhist philosophy, suggesting that all knowledge, all history, all events that had ever occurred were recorded in a non-physical plane of existence. It was metaphysical, spiritual, not scientific. But then Marcus found a note in Richter's handwriting. If Agartha exists, and if it possesses technology beyond our current understanding, could they have developed a way to access the Akashic records? Could they have developed a technology that allows them to perceive and preserve knowledge in ways we consider impossible? It was a wild theory, unprovable, but it suggested something profound, that Agartha wasn't just a physical location, but a repository of knowledge, a place where humanity's true history had been preserved, protected from the forces that had tried to erase it on the surface. Marcus spent the next 2 days researching the Akashic Records concept, looking for any scientific basis for the idea. He found references to quantum entanglement, to the holographic principle, to theories of consciousness that suggested information might be encoded in the fabric of reality itself. It was fringe science. It was the kind of thing that would get you laughed out of an academic conference. But it was also the kind of thing that might explain how an underground civilization could possess knowledge that surface humans had forgotten. On the 7th day of his obsession, there was a knock on his apartment door. Marcus opened it to find a man in a gray suit, early 50s, with the kind of face that was designed to be forgotten. Behind him stood another man, identical in appearance, identical in demeanor. Federal agents. Marcus knew it immediately. There was something about the way they carried themselves, the way their eyes moved, the way they radiated authority and implicit threat. Dr. Marcus Chin? The first man asked, though it was clearly not a question. Yes? I'm Agent Harrison. This is Agent Cole. We're with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. May we come inside? Marcus's heart began to pound. He'd known this was coming. Some part of him had known from the moment Eleanor had shown him the manuscripts. But knowing something intellectually and experiencing it were two different things. Do you have a warrant? Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice steady. We're not here to search your apartment, Dr. Chin, Agent Harrison said. We just want to talk. It would be better if we did it inside, don't you think? Rather than in the hallway where your neighbors might hear? The threat was implicit but unmistakable. They could make this easy, or they could make it difficult. The choice was his. Marcus stepped aside and let them in. The agents looked around the apartment, taking in the chaos of papers and maps and notebooks. Agent Cole's expression didn't change, but Marcus saw something flicker in his eyes. Recognition. Concern. You've been busy, Agent Harrison said, picking up one of Marcus' notebooks and flipping through it. Very busy. Research into underground civilizations. Ancient texts describing impossible locations. Geological surveys of anomalous sites. Quite the project you've got going here. I don't see how that's any of your concern, Marcus said, though his voice was trembling slightly. It's our concern because you've come into possession of materials that are classified as sensitive, Agent Harrison said, setting the notebook down carefully. Materials that relate to matters of national security. Materials that should never have left a secure facility. So Eleanor had stolen them. Or more accurately, Eleanor had hidden them when the university tried to destroy them. And now, the government wanted them back. I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus said. Agent Cole stepped forward. Dr. Chen, let me be direct. You've been in contact with Eleanor Voss. She's given you copies of documents that are the property of the United States government. We need you to return those documents. All of them. The originals, the copies, the digital files, everything. And if I refuse, then we'll have to take more serious measures, Agent Harrison said, his voice calm, matter of fact. We can make your life very difficult, Dr. Chen. We can audit your taxes. We can investigate your financial records. We can find violations in your university employment. We can make sure you never work in academia again. We can do all of that. And it will be completely legal. Or, he paused, letting the threat hang in the air. Or, you can cooperate. You can give us the materials. You can forget about this little research project. You can go back to your life, and we'll leave you alone. Marcus looked at the two agents standing in his apartment, surrounded by the evidence of his obsession, and he made a choice that would change everything. No, he said. Agent Harrison's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not giving you anything. I'm not forgetting about this. And you can investigate my taxes and my finances and my employment record all you want. But you can't stop me from researching this. You can't stop me from telling the truth. The truth? Agent Cole said, stepping closer. Dr. Chin, you don't understand what you're dealing with. This isn't some academic curiosity. This isn't a theory you can publish in a journal. This is something that goes to the highest levels of government. This is something that could destabilize everything if it became public. Then maybe it should become public, Marcus said. Maybe people deserve to know the truth about their own history. Agent Harrison and Agent Cole exchanged a look, brief, meaningful. the kind of look that passed between people who had worked together for years. "We're giving you one chance to reconsider," Agent Harrison said, moving toward the door. "One chance to do the right thing. You have 48 hours. After that, we'll have no choice but to escalate this situation." They left without another word. Marcus stood alone in his apartment, his hands shaking, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. He'd just threatened federal agents. He'd just refused to cooperate with the FBI. He'd just made himself an enemy of the United States government. And he'd never felt more alive. Over the next 2 days, Marcus made preparations. He knew he didn't have much time. The agents had given him 48 hours, which meant they were serious. They would come back, they would take the materials, they would try to silence him. But he wasn't going to let that happen. He made copies of everything. He encrypted the files and uploaded them to multiple cloud servers using anonymous accounts. He printed out the most important documents and hid them in different locations. Some in a safe deposit box at a bank across town, some in a storage unit under a false name, some mailed to trusted colleagues at other universities. He also reached out to other researchers. Using encrypted email and anonymous messaging services, he contacted scholars he knew had been interested in similar topics. Historians who'd published fringe theories about lost civilizations. Geologists who documented anomalous readings in the Earth's crust. Archaeologists who'd spent their careers being dismissed by the mainstream academic establishment. He told them what he'd found. He sent them copies of the most important documents. He explained the implications, and he asked them to continue the research if something happened to him. Most of them thought he was crazy. Some of them didn't respond at all. But a few, a small handful of brilliant, dedicated researchers who had nothing left to lose, just like him, understood what he was doing. They understood the significance, and they agreed to help. One of them was Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, a Nigerian archaeologist who'd spent 20 years researching pre-Columbian connections between Africa and South America. Another was Professor James Liu, a Chinese geophysicist who documented electromagnetic anomalies in locations around the world. A third was Dr. Amara Patel, an Indian historian who'd spent her entire career studying ancient Sanskrit texts and their references to underground civilizations. Together, they formed a network, a secret research collective dedicated to uncovering the truth about Agartha. On the evening of the 48th hour, as Marcus was making final preparations, there was another knock on his door. But this time, it wasn't federal agents. It was Eleanor. She looked worse than she had a week ago. Thinner, more fragile. The cancer was progressing faster than the doctors had predicted. But her eyes were bright with determination. "They came to see me," she said, stepping inside quickly and closing the door behind her. "The agents. They wanted to know if I still had the original manuscripts. I told them no. I told them I'd destroyed them years ago. I don't think they believed me, but they couldn't prove otherwise. Eleanor, you shouldn't be here. It's not safe. Nowhere is safe anymore," she said. "Not for either of us. But I came to tell you something. Something I didn't tell you before." She sat down heavily on his couch, and Marcus could see the effort it took her to stay upright. "Dr. Richter didn't just collect information about Agartha," Eleanor said. "He found it. Or rather, he made contact with representatives of it. There are people, beings who live in Agartha, and they've been trying to make contact with surface humans for decades. They've been waiting for someone to discover the truth, someone who would be willing to pursue it despite the opposition." Marcus felt the world tilt slightly. "How do you know this?" he asked. "Because Dr. Richter told me," Eleanor said, "before he died." He came to me in 1987, just before his death, and he told me everything. He said that the beings of Agartha had chosen him as their emissary. They'd taught him things. They'd shown him things. And when he died, they would choose another. Someone who would be brave enough to finish what he'd started. Eleanor, that's not possible. That's not scientific. Neither is an underground civilization beneath the Earth's crust, Eleanor said quietly. And yet here we are. Dr. Chen, I believe you're the one they've chosen. I believe that's why I found you. I believe that's why the universe, or whatever force governs these things, put you in my path at exactly the right moment. Marcus wanted to dismiss her words as the ravings of a dying woman, but he couldn't, because deep down, some part of him believed her. Some part of him had known from the moment he touched those manuscripts that this was his destiny. That his entire life, all the rejection, all the failure, all the obscurity, had been preparing him for this moment. What do they want? Marcus asked. What do the beings of Agartha want from me? They want the surface world to know the truth, Eleanor said. They want the separation to end. They want to reunite with the surface civilization. And they need someone to make that happen. Someone who can prove that they exist. Someone who can show the world what was hidden. Eleanor reached into her cardigan and pulled out a small object. It was metallic, crystalline, unlike anything Marcus had ever seen before. It seemed to glow faintly with an internal light. Dr. Richter gave this to me before he died, Eleanor said, placing it in Marcus's hand. He said it was a key, a way to communicate with Agartha. He said that when the time came, when someone worthy had been found, I should give it to them. That person is you, Dr. Chen. Marcus held the object, feeling its warmth, feeling something pulse through it like a heartbeat. And in that moment, he understood. He understood that his life was no longer his own. He understood that he'd been chosen for something far greater than himself. He understood that the comfortable obscurity he'd resigned himself to was gone forever. He was committed now, completely, irrevocably. What happens now? He asked. Now, Eleanor said, standing up with difficulty, you run. You gather your research. You contact the others who are helping you. And you go find Agartha. Because the agents will be back soon, and when they come, they won't be asking nicely. Eleanor moved toward the door, then paused. Dr. Chen, one more thing. The beings of Agartha, they're not evil. They're not trying to harm surface humans. But the forces that have been keeping them hidden, those forces are very powerful, very dangerous. They will do anything to keep this secret. Anything. You need to understand that before you go any further. I understand, Marcus said. And he did, but he had no idea what was waiting for him in the mountains. No idea what he was about to discover. No idea that the beings of Agartha had been waiting for this moment for thousands of years. Marcus left his apartment at midnight with nothing but a backpack and the crystalline key Eleanor had given him. He'd spent the previous hours burning bridges. He'd sent his resignation letter to the university, a brief professional email that gave no explanation for his sudden departure. He'd withdrawn most of his savings from his bank account in cash, knowing that using credit cards or electronic transfers would make him easy to track. He'd left his phone on his kitchen counter, disabled and powered off, a decoy for anyone monitoring his location. He was disappearing, not just from his job, not just from his apartment, but from his entire life. The man he'd been, Professor Marcus Chen, the forgotten archaeologist, the failure, was ceasing to exist. The man he was becoming was something else entirely. He drove north in a rental car he'd paid for in cash, using a fake ID he'd purchased from a contact, Dr. Okonkwo. had provided. The highway stretched out before him, empty and dark, illuminated only by his headlights. Behind him, the city receded into the distance. Ahead of him lay uncertainty, danger, and the possibility of discovering something that would change human civilization forever. He drove through the night, stopping only for gas and coffee. His mind was racing, cycling through possibilities and contingencies. The FBI would be looking for him. They'd check his apartment, find his resignation letter, realize he was gone. They'd put out a bolo be on the lookout for his vehicle. They'd contact his family, his friends, his colleagues. They'd try to track his movements. But Marcus had studied the techniques used by people who wanted to disappear. He'd read books on evasion and counter-surveillance. He'd learned how to avoid cameras, how to move through the world without leaving a digital footprint, how to think like someone being hunted. It was knowledge he'd never expected to use, but now it was keeping him alive. By dawn, he'd reached the foothills of the Cascade Mountains in Washington state. He stopped at a small motel in a town so unremarkable that it barely appeared on maps. He paid cash for a room, registered under the fake name on his ID, and collapsed on the bed, exhausted. He slept for 14 hours straight. When he woke, it was evening again. The motel room was dark except for the neon glow of the sign outside. Marcus lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Eleanor. He wondered if she was still alive. He wondered if the agents had found her. He wondered if she was suffering. He picked up the crystalline key from the nightstand where he'd placed it before sleeping. In the darkness, it seemed to glow more brightly. He held it up to his eye, and for just a moment, he could swear he saw something inside it. An image, a symbol, a message written in a language he couldn't read but somehow understood. His phone, the encrypted burner phone that Dr. Okonkwo had given him, buzzed with a text message. It was from Dr. Liu, safe house arranged. Coordinates attached. Come alone. Marcus memorized the coordinates and deleted the message. Then he packed his backpack, checked out of the motel, and headed toward the mountains. The safe house was a cabin deep in the Cascades, accessible only by a narrow mountain road that was barely maintained. Marcus almost drove past it twice before he spotted the small marker, a red painted rock that matched the description Dr. Liu had given him. The cabin was old, built in the 1970s, surrounded by dense forest that provided excellent concealment. As Marcus pulled up, the front door opened, and Dr. James Liu emerged. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of weathered face that came from spending decades in the field, conducting research in remote locations. "Welcome," Liu said, extending his hand. "I'm glad you made it safely." Inside the cabin, Marcus found that it had been converted into a makeshift research center. There were computers, satellite phones, maps covering every wall. And there were people. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo was there, along with Dr. Amara Patel. But there were also others, researchers and activists that Marcus didn't recognize, all of them connected to the network of people dedicated to uncovering the truth about Agartha. "We don't have much time," Dr. Okonkwo said, spreading a large map across the table. "The FBI has already issued an alert for your vehicle. They've frozen your bank accounts. They're monitoring your email and phone. But we anticipated that. We've been preparing for this moment for years." "Years?" Marcus asked, surprised. "How long have you known about Agartha?" "Longer than you'd think," Dr. Patel said. She was a small woman, maybe 60, with intelligent eyes and an air of quiet authority. "We've been researching independently for decades. When Eleanor Voss made contact with us through Dr. Richter's notes, we realized we weren't alone. We realized there were others out there, all pursuing the same truth. Dr. Liu pulled up a satellite image on one of the computers. It showed a remote region of the Himalayas, high altitude, heavily forested, with mountains rising like jagged teeth against the sky. "This is where we believe the primary entrance to Agartha is located," Liu said, pointing to a specific location. "It's in the Bhutanese Himalayas, in a region that's extremely difficult to access. The terrain is treacherous, the weather is unpredictable, and the area is deliberately kept isolated by the Bhutanese government, which has been protecting this location for centuries." "How do you know this?" Marcus asked. "Because we've been studying the geological data," Dr. Okonkwo said. Dr. Richter collected extensive seismic surveys of this region. The data shows massive hollow chambers beneath the mountains, and the electromagnetic readings in this area are unlike anything else on Earth. They suggest the presence of technology, advanced technology, operating beneath the surface. Marcus studied the map, his mind racing. "And you think we can actually get there? The FBI is looking for me. The government won't let us just waltz into Bhutan." "No, they won't," Dr. Liu said. "But we have resources. We have contacts in various governments who are sympathetic to our cause. We have funding from private sources, wealthy individuals who believe that the truth about Agartha is more important than government secrecy. And we have something else." He pulled out another object, similar to the crystalline key that Eleanor had given Marcus, but larger, more complex. It seemed to contain multiple geometric patterns, all interlocking, all pulsing with an internal light. "This is a map," Dr. Patel said. "Or rather, it's a key that contains a map." Dr. Richter discovered that the beings of Agartha left these objects scattered around the world, hidden in places where they believed future seekers would find them. The key Eleanor gave you is one of them. This is another. Together, they create a complete picture of how to reach Agartha. Marcus felt the weight of the key in his pocket, suddenly aware of its significance. It wasn't just a symbolic object, it was technology, advanced technology that he didn't yet understand. "How do I use it?" he asked. "That," Dr. Liu said, "is what we need to figure out. We've been studying these objects for years, but we haven't been able to unlock their secrets. However, we believe that when you hold both keys together, in the right location, something will happen. A revelation, a communication, a doorway opening. And that location is the Himalayas," Marcus said. "Yes," Dr. Patel confirmed. "We believe that's where the primary gateway to Agartha is located. And we believe that's where you need to go." Over the next week, Marcus trained. He worked with ex-military specialists who taught him survival techniques, how to navigate in mountains, how to avoid detection, how to move through hostile terrain without leaving traces. He studied the geography of Bhutan obsessively, memorizing every peak, every valley, every possible route through the mountains. He also studied the research. Dr. Okonkwo had compiled extensive documentation on the references to Agartha in ancient texts. She'd created a timeline showing how the concept of an underground civilization appeared across cultures and centuries. She documented the geological evidence, the seismic anomalies, the electromagnetic readings, the satellite imagery that suggested impossible structures beneath the Earth's surface. And Dr. Patel had translated the most important manuscripts, the ones that contained specific instructions for reaching Agartha. The instructions were cryptic, written in metaphorical language, but they pointed to a specific location in the Bhutanese Himalayas, a place called Druk Yul in the ancient texts, the land of the thunder dragon. The Bhutanese have known about Agartha for centuries, Dr. Patel explained, showing Marcus ancient Buddhist texts. It's part of their spiritual tradition. They call it Shambhala, the hidden kingdom of enlightenment. The entire Bhutanese government and religious establishment are dedicated to protecting this location and keeping it secret from the outside world. So how are we supposed to get in? Marcus asked. We're not going to sneak in, Dr. Liu said. We're going to ask permission. He explained the plan. Dr. Patel had connections within the Bhutanese government, people who were sympathetic to the cause of revealing the truth about Agartha. They would arrange for Marcus to enter Bhutan as a legitimate researcher, with proper documentation and official permission. Once inside the country, he would make his way to the designated location in the mountains. But you won't be alone, Dr. Okonkwo said. We'll have people positioned at various points along your route. We'll have satellite communication. We'll be monitoring your location in real time. If something goes wrong, we can extract you. And if the government finds out what I'm really doing, Marcus asked, then we'll deal with that when it happens, Dr. Liu said. But we believe that the Bhutanese government wants this secret to be revealed. They've been protecting Agartha for centuries, but they're tired of the burden. They're tired of being the guardians of a secret that could transform human civilization. They want the truth to come out. They want the responsibility to be shared with the rest of the world. It was a bold plan, a dangerous plan, a plan that could get Marcus killed or imprisoned or both. But it was also the only plan they had. 2 weeks later, Marcus was on a flight to Bhutan. He was traveling under the false identity that Dr. Okonkwo had arranged for him, complete with forged academic credentials, a fabricated research proposal, and official letters of introduction from the Bhutanese Ministry of Education. He looked like a legitimate researcher. He had the documentation to prove it. And he had the crystalline keys hidden in a specially designed compartment in his backpack. As the plane descended toward Paro International Airport, Marcus looked out the window at the mountains below. They were massive, jagged, covered in dense forest. And somewhere in those mountains was the entrance to Agartha. Somewhere in those peaks was the answer to questions that had plagued him his entire life. He was terrified. He was exhilarated. He was completely committed to this path, knowing that there was no turning back. The plane touched down. Marcus gathered his belongings and prepared to disembark. As he walked down the stairs onto the tarmac, he felt the weight of the keys in his backpack. He felt the presence of something vast and ancient and patient, waiting for him in the mountains. He felt the presence of Agartha. A Bhutanese official was waiting for him at the airport, a man named Dorji, maybe 50, with kind eyes and a knowing smile. He greeted Marcus in English and led him through customs without any delays or complications. Everything had been arranged. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. "Welcome to Bhutan," Dorji said, driving Marcus toward the capital city of Thimphu in a Land Rover. "We've been expecting you. The ministry has arranged for you to have complete freedom of movement. You can go anywhere you wish, research anything you wish. There are no restrictions." "That's very generous," Marcus said carefully. "It is not generosity," Dorji said, glancing at Marcus with that knowing smile. "It is necessity. The time has come for the truth to be known. The time has come for the separation to end. And you, Dr. Chen, are the one who will make that happen." Marcus felt his heart rate accelerate. Dorji knew. The Bhutanese government knew. They knew exactly what Marcus was there to do, and they were supporting him. "How long have you known?" Marcus asked. "Since Dr. Richter first came to Bhutan in the 1960s, Dorji said. "We have been waiting for his successor. We have been waiting for someone worthy to complete his work. The ministry believes that person is you." They drove through Thimphu in silence, Marcus's mind reeling with the implications of what Dorji had just told him. The Bhutanese government wasn't trying to stop him. They were facilitating his journey. They were helping him reach Agartha. which meant that everything he'd been told by the FBI agents, that this was a matter of national security, that revealing the truth would destabilize governments, was a lie, or at least it was a lie from the perspective of the American government. The Bhutanese government had a different perspective. They believed the truth should be revealed. As the sun set over the Himalayan peaks, painting the mountains in shades of gold and crimson, Marcus understood that he was no longer just a researcher. He was an emissary. He was a messenger. He was the instrument through which the truth about Agartha would finally be revealed to the world. And the journey to find it was about to begin in earnest. But Marcus had no idea what he would find in those mountains. No idea what the beings of Agartha would ask of him. No idea that the truth he was seeking would be far stranger and far more profound than anything he could have imagined. The next morning, Marcus awoke in a modest hotel room in Thimphu, the capital of Bhutan, invigorated yet anxious. The sun slipped through the curtains, casting soft light across the room. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, reminding himself of the significance of this journey. Today he would meet with government officials who would provide him with further information and facilitate his expedition into the Himalayas. After a quick breakfast of traditional rice and eggs, Marcus met Dorji in the lobby. The Bhutanese official was dressed in a traditional gu, a knee-length robe tied at the waist with a belt. His demeanor was calm and welcoming, a stark contrast to the urgency that buzzed within Marcus. "Are you ready?" Dorji asked, his eyes glinting with a mix of excitement and seriousness. "As ready as I'll ever be," Marcus replied, his heart racing at the thought of what lay ahead. They drove to a government building adorned with intricate woodwork and colorful murals. Inside, Marcus was introduced to a small group of officials, all of whom seemed to be aware of the nature of his research. They greeted him warmly, their expressions a blend of curiosity and respect. Dr. Chen, began the head official, a woman named Karma. "We are honored to host you. You are about to embark on a journey that many have sought, but few have accomplished. The path to Agartha is fraught with challenges, but it is also filled with extraordinary possibilities." Marcus felt a surge of determination. "I understand the risks, but I believe the truth must be revealed. If Agartha exists, then it could change everything we know about our history and ourselves." Karma nodded. "Indeed. But you must also understand that the beings of Agartha have their own ways, their own customs. They will not reveal themselves to just anyone. You must approach with respect and humility." "What do I need to do?" Marcus asked, eager to begin. "You will travel to the village of Paro, where you will meet a guide, an elder named Tenzin, who possesses knowledge of the old ways. He will lead you into the mountains, to the location where we believe the entrance to Agartha lies." Dorji interjected. "Tenzin is our most respected spiritual leader. He has spent decades studying the ancient texts, and he will help you understand how to navigate the spiritual and physical challenges you may face." After discussing logistical details and gathering supplies, Marcus felt a sense of purpose building inside him. He was stepping into the unknown, and while fear lingered at the edges of his mind, it was overshadowed by an exhilarating anticipation. The drive to Paro took them through breathtaking landscapes, lush valleys dotted with terraced fields, ancient monasteries perched precariously on cliffs, and the towering peaks of the Himalayas rising majestically in the distance. The air was crisp and filled with the scent of pine and earth. Marcus felt alive, invigorated by the beauty surrounding him. Arriving in Paro, he met Tenzin, an elderly man with a serene presence and piercing eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom. He wore traditional Bhutanese robes, and his hair was long and white, flowing down his back like a waterfall of snow. "Welcome, Dr. Chin," Tenzin said, his voice calm and measured. "I have awaited your arrival. The journey to Agartha is not merely a physical trek, it is a spiritual quest." "I understand," Marcus replied, feeling a mix of trepidation and excitement. Tenzin assessed him for a moment. "You must leave behind the clutter of your mind and embrace the stillness of your spirit. Only then can you perceive the path that leads to the entrance." Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of Tenzin's words. He knew that this journey would require more than just physical endurance. It would demand introspection, faith, and the ability to connect with something greater than himself. The next day, they began the ascent into the mountains. The path was steep and rugged, winding through dense forests and rocky outcrops. Tenzin moved with ease, his footsteps light and deliberate, while Marcus struggled to keep up, his lungs burning with the effort. "Breathe, Dr. Chin," Tenzin instructed as they paused to rest. "Feel the pulse of the earth beneath your feet. This is not just a journey through the mountains. It is a journey within." Marcus closed his eyes, focusing on his breath, on the sounds of the forest, the rustling of leaves, the distant call of birds, the whisper of the wind. Slowly, he began to feel a connection to the world around him, as if the mountains themselves were alive, watching him, guiding him. As they climbed higher, the air grew thinner and the landscape more surreal. They traversed narrow ledges, crossed swift mountain streams, and navigated rocky outcrops that jutted out like the bones of ancient giants. The scenery shifted from dense forests to alpine meadows bursting with vibrant wildflowers, and finally to stark cliff faces that seemed to scrape the sky. After several days of grueling travel, they reached a plateau where the view opened up to a breathtaking vista. Below them lay a vast valley, cradled by towering peaks, their summits kissed by snow. Tenzin paused, raising his arms as if embracing the mountains. "This is the heart of the Himalayas," he said, his voice reverberating with reverence. "It is here that we will find the entrance. But first, you must prepare yourself." "Prepare how?" Marcus asked, glancing around at the rugged beauty that surrounded them. "You must meditate," Tenzin replied. "You must open your mind and spirit to the energies of this sacred place. The beings of Agartha will not reveal themselves to those who are unready. You must be in harmony with the land and the spirit." They set up camp on the plateau, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Marcus settled into a meditative position. He focused on his breath, letting go of the concerns and fears that had plagued him for days. He envisioned the journey ahead, the truth he sought, and the lives that would be transformed by it. Time seemed to blur as he entered a state of deep meditation. He felt his consciousness expand, transcending the boundaries of his physical form, merging with the energy of the mountains, the wind, and the very essence of the earth itself. In that moment, he understood it was not just his journey, it was a collective journey of all humanity, a quest for knowledge that had been hidden for far too long. The next morning, Tenzin led Marcus to a narrow cave entrance, hidden behind a waterfall cascading down the mountainside. The sound of rushing water echoed around them, creating a mystical atmosphere. "This is it," Tenzin said, his voice a whisper, "the entrance to Agartha. But remember, Dr. Chen, it is not just a physical threshold. It is a threshold of the mind and spirit. You must be prepared for what lies within. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He had come so far, and now he was standing at the brink of the unknown. The crystalline key in his pocket pulsed with warmth, as if it were alive, urging him forward. As they entered the cave, the air grew cooler and the light dimmed. The walls were adorned with ancient symbols and carvings that glowed faintly, illuminating the way ahead. The path twisted and turned, leading deeper into the heart of the mountain. Stay close and trust your intuition, Tenzin advised. The journey is as important as the destination. Marcus nodded, his heart pounding in anticipation. They walked for what felt like hours, the silence of the cave wrapping around them like a shroud. The atmosphere was charged with energy, and he could feel the presence of something profound, something waiting for him just beyond the darkness. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber, the size of a cathedral, with a ceiling that disappeared into the shadows above. In the center of the chamber stood a massive crystalline structure, shimmering with colors that seemed to shift and dance. It was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen, beyond beauty, beyond comprehension. "This is the heart of Agartha," Tenzin said, awe evident in his voice. "It is a repository of knowledge, a gateway to the Akashic records. Here you will find answers to the questions you have sought." Marcus stepped forward, the crystalline key in his hand, feeling its warmth intensify. He approached the structure, entranced by its beauty and the energy that radiated from it. "Place the key against the crystal," Tenzin instructed. "Let it guide you." With trembling hands, Marcus held the key against the crystalline surface. As he did, a surge of energy coursed through him, and the chamber erupted in light. Symbols and images filled the air, swirling around him like a tempest, revealing glimpses of ancient civilizations, lost knowledge, and the interconnectedness of all beings. He saw Agartha in its full glory, cities of light, people who lived in harmony with nature, guardians of wisdom and peace. He saw the separation that had occurred, the forces that had sought to erase this truth, and the hope that had endured through the ages. And then he heard a voice, a deep resonant sound that echoed through the chamber, reverberating in his very soul. "Welcome, seeker of truth. You have come from far and wide, through trials and tribulations, to find that which has been hidden. You are not alone. We have waited for you. The time of revelation is at hand." Marcus felt a wave of understanding wash over him. This was the moment he had been preparing for. This was the truth he had sought for so long. "What must I do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the overwhelming energy surrounding him. "You must share this knowledge with the world. You must bridge the gap between the surface and Agartha. You must be the voice that awakens humanity to the truth of their existence. But know this, the path will not be easy. Forces will rise against you. There will be trials, but you are not alone. We are with you." As the voice faded, Marcus felt a profound sense of purpose settle within him. He understood that this was not just a personal journey. It was a collective mission to awaken humanity to the truth of their history, their potential, and their connection to the universe. As the light began to dim, Marcus turned to Tenzin, who watched him with a knowing smile. The realization hit him. This was only the beginning. The journey to Agartha had transformed him, but now he had to face the world and share what he had learned. "Are you ready?" Tenzin asked, his voice calm and steady. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his mission pressing on his shoulders, but also the strength of the knowledge he had gained. I am ready. Together they stepped back into the darkness of the cave, ready to face whatever lay ahead, armed with the truth that would change everything. But the forces that sought to keep Agartha hidden would not rest easily. They were watching, and Marcus was about to discover just how powerful those forces were. Marcus and Tenzin emerged from the cave, the weight of their discovery heavy on their shoulders. The sun shone brightly over the majestic Himalayan peaks, contrasting with the urgency of their mission. They quickly descended the mountain, aware that the forces seeking to keep Agartha hidden would be on high alert. Back in the village of Pero, Tenzin took Marcus to a tea house for a private conversation. Marcus expressed his intention to connect with his colleagues, Dr. Okonkwo and Dr. Liu, to share the knowledge of Agartha and gather support. After a brief meeting with local officials, Marcus returned to his hotel and contacted Dr. Okonkwo and Dr. Liu through an encrypted app. He detailed his experiences in Agartha, emphasizing the urgency of their situation. They arranged to meet in Thimphu the next day. The following day, Marcus met with them in a secure location. He shared everything he had learned about Agartha, its truths, and the beings that awaited humanity's awakening. They discussed strategies for revealing this knowledge, knowing they would face significant opposition. As they prepared, Marcus received a chilling message from an unknown number. "We know what you've discovered. You need to stop this." Alarmed, they realized the danger they were in and agreed to increase their security while remaining determined to move forward. That night, Marcus reflected on his mission, feeling the weight of responsibility for the truth he now carried. He resolved to push ahead, knowing that the world needed to know about Agartha, despite the looming threats.